All right. Well, welcome everybody. Heather and I are very excited that you're here. My name is Bobbi McGrath, and Heather's going to introduce herself in a second. And we are both health coaches that we've put together this presentation for you. We're really excited that you're here and taking time out of your holiday weekend, long weekend, to be with us and join us for Unlock the Secrets to Identifying Mold and CIRS in your clients. But some of you, we've already found out, are not actual practitioners, but you are people that are impacted by mold. And I want you to know that you're in the right place. You're going to learn some things tonight from us that I think will be helpful. And we would love for you to all write down your questions. Please stay to the end. We do have a special treat for you at the end, and we'll be answering questions in Q&A. So if you can close your notifications, turn off your, cell phone beeper and all that kind of stuff, and just really be present with us. We're going to move quickly through things, and we're really, really, really excited that you're here. All right, this slide is our contact slide. And this is Heather Sunderland on the left, and I'm Bobbi McGrath on the right. And you can take a screenshot of this or take a shot of it with your phone if you would like to get some information as far as our business we run together is Navigating Mold and CIRS. And then we also each individually have our own practices, health coaching practices that we do. And we also have our socials. Heather's in Buckeye, Arizona. I'm in Wheaton, Illinois. We both work virtually and in person if necessary. And we would love for you to follow us and connect with us. Really quick, I'm going to give you a disclaimer that this talk is for educational purposes only. It is not prescriptive, so please don't walk away from this thinking that we gave you some type of protocol or prescription, but we hope that you do have a takeaway from this that you can use right away. And then, like I said, please stay to the end because we do have an instant bonus for you that you'll walk away with tonight that will be really helpful for you as taking the next steps and just confirming things for you with regard to mold and CIRS.
So as Bobbi said, welcome. We are just so glad you're here. We're excited to bring this information to you. We have been working on this project for a long time, and we really hope that you're going to start to recognize symptoms of mold toxicity to learn more about CIRS and initial steps you can take. You're going to learn more about the approach that we use, the regenerative approach to heal. This information is truly just a small fraction of what we would love to share with you. We have created a deep dive, a course called Navigating Mold and CIRS, Expert Insights for Practitioners. The course is appropriate for individuals dealing with mold, but we wanted to market it to practitioners first so people weren't going misdiagnosed and unrecognized as to what they're dealing with. And that course actually starts in 4 days. So we're super, super excited to launch that course. So you'll hear little bits about the course sort of throughout this slideshow, but you are going to walk away with a lot of information.
And we are going to turn off our cameras now just because we don't want to be in all of our slides here. So we will come back on for the Q&A.
So we have a twofold mission. The first mission was really to fill that educational gap for healthcare providers because we see that mold and CIRS is getting missed in clients. The other part was we're both supporting clients currently. We want to continue to support clients with mold and CIRS to restore their health. And we're educating people about the regenerative approach, which is a very economical approach to healing, and really people can move the needle in their health much, much more quickly with this approach than with other approaches. So this is just an overview of where we're going. We have so much to cover. I'm not going to spend time on that, but just know we are going to do Q&A at the end.
So some important details we would like for you to remember and know and kind of just bring to the forefront of why we're even doing this. It's estimated that about 40% of the population suffers from chronic illness. And the big piece to this is that many of those cases are actually rooted in mold. So there's people getting treatment for chronic illnesses, but really, if they were to treat the mold, they would probably have a better result. And the suffering that people are often suffering from, or the symptoms, is dismissed a lot of time or unheard by conventional medicine. They're looking to suppress a symptom, and they don't really listen to the holistic approach that we're talking about. And then we also want you to know that when you don't address the root cause, you basically are going to be stuck in a cycle of ineffective treatment, which costs a lot of money and a lot of time for people, which is unfortunate. So we're bringing hope to you that this can be changed. We want you to think really quick when you're thinking about illnesses and what percentage of illness do you think, what guess do you have could be an environmental piece? What component, like the environmental component, what percentage would that be in your mind? And research shows that we have 95% of all illness has an environmental component, which kind of blew our mind when we were doing research for our course. So it's a pretty big piece to this whole puzzle. Another statistic that we want you to also know is that if 4 people went into a building that had mold, 1 of them would come out, 3 would be okay with detoxifying through their liver and their detox pathways, but 1 of them is genetically predisposed to struggle to detox the mycotoxins from mold, which you're going to learn more about. So this is something that doesn't automatically happen just because you have the genetic code for that, but when the environment is right, you can really struggle with mold.
So just some important facts to know about mold. Number one, mold and mycotoxins, 70% of the time you actually don't see it. It's hidden in a home, behind a wall, under a sink, and you do not smell it. It's estimated that asthma and sinus infections most of the time are due to actual water damage. The other thing to know is the estimate is about 50% of the homes in the United States have water damage that we can see, and it's probably a much higher number that has unhealthy levels of toxic mold, that we can't see and see. So it's a very big problem. So whether you're a practitioner or I know we have a lot of people who are dealing with mold in the audience, I know for practitioners, it can be very frustrating and confusing to know why a client's not progressing. But also, if you're an individual, are you frustrated? Are you confused? Are you struggling to understand why you're not getting better? If you're a practitioner, do you have fear and anxiety about dealing with mold and CIRS? I have a lot of practitioners who say, I don't want to touch anybody with mold and CIRS. It's too complicated. Do you feel as a practitioner equipped to assess your client's environment to really understand if their environment is negatively impacting their health? Or as an individual, do you understand how to know, what aspects of your environment are negatively impacting your health? And do you understand how to properly support yourself or a client who's having symptoms, either due to their environment or due to the process of detoxifying or due to things dying in the body, pathogens that are dying?
So as you're sitting there thinking about that, I want you to think about imagining if you had a blueprint for your practice as a practitioner, or you just felt really confident that your provider or practitioner had a blueprint to confidently handle complex clients, including mold and CIRS, because we want to talk to you about the regenerative approach today, which not only helps mold and CIRS, but it helps anybody that has complex issues. I want you to also imagine if you never had to second guess yourself and you had the training and resources, which we want to provide to you, and the community to support clients with mold, toxicity, and CIRS, and what that would actually feel like. I also want you to imagine that you would be able to definitely know when your client's environment is negatively impacting their health. Wouldn't it be great to know what questions to ask and what to look for? And then imagine guiding your client or yourself, if you are one that's impacted, successfully through the roller coaster ride of healing, because it's not a straight line. It is an up and down road. But imagine what it would feel like if you could feel like you could do that.
So here's Melanie, who's a client who was actually in mold for 20 years. She came and to us and she felt like she was dying. And she was in a very high level of mold, a Hertz Me Too of 30, agreed to get out of her home and put a trailer on her property. And right away, we started working on the regenerative approach. And 3 days out of her home and in the trailer and using the regenerative approach, she was actually starting to feel like hopeful and alive. She even played pickleball Now, she has good days and she has bad days. And we've been working together for about 6 months, and she no longer has CIRS. She still has a lot of healing to do and a lot of things that need to happen in the body, but she's feeling the best that she's felt in a very long time. Jill is another person who her whole family was actually exposed to mold in their home and in their church. And they spent lots of years going to doctors where the focus was detox, 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 or kill. And basically, when they moved out of their environment and started to do the regenerative approach, very quickly they were sleeping better, their brain fog lifted, increased energy, and now she's able to even tolerate some exposures to mold.
So this is our funny slide to make you smile. It's time to meet your instructors. My name is Bobbi McGrath, and that's me on the left in my home sauna. This is one of the tools that I have used to restore my health from mold and CIRS and heavy metal toxicity. And we just want you to understand that we are on a mission. And I will let Heather tell you what she's doing in that picture.
I'm sitting in a hyperbaric oxygen tank. I had Lyme. I did not really use the hyperbaric oxygen for mold. It was part of supporting my body when my nerves were repairing, which was a 2 year, very painful process. And the hyperbaric oxygen was very supportive in helping the nerves to finish the healing process. So uh, I want to introduce you to my friend and my colleague, Bobbi McGrath. Now, Bobbi is a dear friend, and we're very close because of our journeys, but she was actually the one who pointed out to me that she thought when I was in health coaching school and she was already graduated that I might have mold and CIRS. So if it wasn't for Bobbi, I think I would still be sick and disabled. I spent a lot of time blaming Lyme disease on everything, and I had no idea I was living in mold. So will be forever grateful for her for pointing out what was going on. She has been my cheerleader on my healing journey. She is very insightful as a health coach, very caring, very knowledgeable about trauma and about nervous system dysfunction. She has taught me so much about nervous system dysfunction with my clients. And anybody who works with her is just truly blessed to have her in their corner and as a health coach.
Thanks, Heather. That was very nice of you to say that. As you can see, I'm sure you could read through all of this information, but I wanted to highlight just educationally wise. First of all, I found regenerative health through Heather because after she found out she had mold and CIRS from my kind of just nudging her to go and find out because I thought she did, she brought back to me this regenerative approach. And I joined that community and I actually went back to school and got certified in regenerative health and detox. So I'm a practitioner with that kind of background. So I'm very grateful to her because it changed my practice, it changed my life, and I'm very, very thankful for that. My health history is that I do have had in the past mold exposure and chronic inflammatory response syndrome, but I am much past that, restored by health. And I wanted to tell you my why for making this course and working with Heather to birth this course is just that the modern world is just too full of toxins. We just can't battle back from a lot of this unless we are aware of it. And I want you to understand that it gets misidentified very often and that people are suffering out there. And so that's one of our missions is that we end the suffering by educating practitioners and people in the public, and that you can regenerate your health. You will be able to move past this. And so I want to tell you a little bit about my story. I was exposed in my lake house up in northern Wisconsin was flooded. And we cleaned up the flood and all of that. We don't live there and thought that that was all we needed to do. And turns out it wasn't. I went down in the crawl space. There was mold that had grown that we couldn't see or smell. And I got blasted by it. And I was actually down there with my husband. We both were exposed, but I was the one who developed the CIRS and over 30 symptoms that I had. And what's interesting is that we both were there, but I was the one who ended up testing positive for CIRS and had to really work hard on my health. And my husband didn't. He still needed a detox, but he did not get CIRS. I struggled with a lot of brain fog, and I had actually a test that we're going to talk about later, actually in the course, called a neuroquant that showed my brain had shrunk. And so it had a lot of brain and nervous system dysregulation, body temperature issues, things like that. And I also struggled with connective tissue problems with exercise recovery. I was used to working out a lot and just wasn't able to do that. And I also struggled with a lot of emotional regulation, a lot of blood sugar issues, things like that. But my story really didn't start in 2018 when I was exposed. It actually started way back as a child. I have memories of my basement flooding as a kid, and my parents did their best to clean it up, put the shop back, and toss out the indoor-outdoor carpet. But at that point, I was basically exposed to water damage at a very early age. And as I went through life, unfortunately, I was a child of an alcoholic. So I was a fixer, I was a helper. I was, if everybody could be happy, I would be doing great. And so I kind of wore myself out quite a bit. I had a lot of grief from a lot of loss in my family. My mom and my brother passed away 10 weeks apart. My dad was 3 years later. My dog was right after that. My kids left the nest. It was one of those things where I was trying to be an excellent caregiver to some people in my family, and it was just wearing me out. So by the time I reached my late 40s and then I was impacted by mold in 2018, it just really took me out at the knees. And I was just not able to even function. And you can see here, there was a lot of blood work that I needed to go through. I met a doctor that helped me figure out that I had mold and started a protocol. But it wasn't until Heather basically brought the regenerative approach to me that I was able to really make gains in it. I did a lot of neurofeedback and a lot of restoration in the nervous system. And after about 12 months on this regenerative approach and using superfoods as medicine, I was able to get off a lot of the pharmaceuticals I was on, and I was able to start to repair my brain and my gut, and just really found that I was on a different path than I would have ever been if I had not found it. And the thing I want you to understand about my story and the success with the regenerative approach is that it is a full body holistic approach. And what I mean by that is that you have to address the nervous system in your care, I truly believe, in order for the person to be treated and fully recover. You can treat parts of the body, and that is more conventional or functional medicine, but regenerative approach basically is helping your body come back to homeostasis. And that is important. As practitioners, we have to learn how to help our clients with their nervous system, and their immune system function will follow. So right now I want to introduce you to Heather Sunderland. She is my really, really good friend. As you can tell, we've been through a lot together. We've known each other for over 6 years. And we've been working together over this last year to bring this to you. Heather is one of those people that when you are in her care as a health coach or a friend or a family member, you are in the best hands. She's a faith-driven person. She's a warrior. She's been through a lot. You'll hear her story. She is the person that I trust fully. She's helped me with my health. She's a muscle testing whiz and can help a lot of people with really getting to the bottom of what it is that is their highest priority and needs. And I would trust my life with Heather. And she has a heart of gold, and she would love to help anybody. That's just been her mission since we started working on this, was that she just really wants to work with people to help them get out of misery. And so I'm going to hand this over to Heather, and she can tell you her amazing story.
Thanks, Bobby. I appreciate that. I'll let you see my background. I really was a dietitian, diabetic educator, and became a functional health coach when I was sick, trying to figure out my own health story, but really use more a regenerative approach with clients. My big why is I want to give people hope. I want them to know that no matter how sick they are right now, they can get better, and we can bring the body back to health and vibrancy and balance. Well, Bobby's gonna share some, well, all right, yeah, Bobby's gonna share some slides. My son, my husband, and I were all in a home that had water damage, and we didn't really know it ever since my son was 2. So my son had different symptoms, and we want you to understand how people can present very differently. So he had asthma, food allergies, underweight, ulcerative colitis, and labeled also with blood work that showed Crohn's. He is now much older. He's 33. He's never addressed mold or CIRS. in his body. So he is still functional, but very sickly, and continues to have more and more health issues. My husband and I did address CIRS with the regenerative approach and have restored our health. My husband struggled with his weight, increasing blood sugars, metabolic syndromes, and any skin rash, label illness, psoriasis, eczema he had. He no longer has those labels, but he is someone who detoxes through his skin. Um, my story is a little bit different. And I was exposed to mold my whole life. I did not know it. My childhood bedroom had black mold and stacky. So by the time I was 30, I started to have daily pain and I was labeled with things like chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia. By the time I was 35, the pain had gotten so intense, I stopped working. And I really developed severe neuropathy and lots of different labels, interstitial cystitis. I was actually homebound for 10 years because I could not handle the pain I had when I was in a vehicle. It really wasn't until I was 52. So, a lot of years in between with a lot of labels. I had like 20 labels of diseases, that I was diagnosed with chronic Lyme, and I chose to treat holistically, and I herxed and I really improved, but I was still struggling to walk and to stand. Um, I had ligament laxity. I could not hold a chiropractic adjustment. I was at the chiropractor 3 to 4 times a week for 8 years straight. Um, and that's when I entered health coaching school in 2019 to try to figure out what was wrong. Just to give you a sense, I actually was in a zero gravity chair for health coaching school because if I sat up in my desk, my vertebrae would go out of alignment if I sat on regular furniture. So I sort of lived in the zero gravity chair for a lot of years and slept in it. And then during COVID, my Lyme resurfaced. I did not know that was possible. And that same month, I developed active mono and Graves' disease. It was a very, very dark season in my life with the Graves. I was literally awake for 72 hours at a time. My heart rate was very, very elevated all the time. And that is sort of when Bobbi said to me when I had posted in our health coaching school, she said, I think you have mold or CIRS. And I'm like, I'm in the desert. I just moved to Arizona. I'm in a new build. And then I remembered our water leak. And so I went and did the testing for CIRS and I had it. I was also struggling with SIBO. I was down to 10 foods that I could eat for 10 years. It was very frustrating for me not to be able to eat and not have like crazy symptoms of bloating or bladder pain. Um, and I worked with a wonderful, wonderful doctor who specialized in CIRS. Nothing shifted in 6 months of treatment. And then I met some other coaches who were doing the regenerative approach who had CIRS, and they were seeing big shifts early on. And it was sort of just a step of faith. And on December 10th, I started 2020, the regenerative approach. And in 3 days, my SIBO was improving. My diet expanded to 11 foods and then 12. And things, it was gradual. But I was seeing shifts and I knew I was on the right track with what I was doing. At 3 months, my brain fog lifted. I stopped needing to go to the chiropractor. I never went again after 3 months addressing detox the way we're going to share with you. 6 months out, I stopped needing my assistive devices. I used that little portable seat. I literally could not stand for about more than 2 minutes. My vertebrae would go out of alignment. I could do like a 10-minute walk, a short walk, but if I stopped and rested, I did okay. So it's been a really crazy journey. And it was at about 23 months that my doctor said I no longer had Lyme mold or CIRS, but my body still had a lot of pathogens, a lot of toxins it needed to let go of, even though my blood work and everything was okay in that department. Now I'm a little over 4 years out. I'm no longer sick. I would say I'm 99% better. I have not been this good since I was 30 and I'm 59 now. So my desire is really to let people know no matter how long you've been sick, you can get well if you're willing to do the work. And the regenerative approach for me, that was my game changer. So we're just going to talk about, I mean, and both Bobbi and I, with our journeys, we saw what kind of things were missed. And so one of the things is a lot of approaches do not prepare the body for detoxification or for killing. You really have to prepare the body, make sure pathways are properly supported before you do anything. The other thing that I see is a lot of people don't understand um, the environment and what tests to do. I get a lot of clients from doctors who supposedly do Lyme or mold, and they're doing air testing or plate testing on the environment, which misses mold 95% of the time. So a lot of practitioners out there just do not understand what the testing means. The other thing that I have found is so many people are just focused on mold, and mycotoxins. And they're not looking at the whole entire bucket of what's in the toxic bucket because all of us have been exposed to other things, parasites, viruses, bacteria, other toxins, other heavy metals, chemicals. So all of those things cause systemic inflammation, not just the mold and mycotoxins, but they may tip the bucket for many people.
Yeah. And I think what people need to understand too is that the ineffective approaches typically don't address the or restoring the gut. They're interested in getting rid of things and detoxing, but they're not always thinking about restoring the gut because if the gut is still leaky and open, you're going to continue to have the toxins come in. And that's where the cellular nourishment comes in. When you restore the gut, the body begins to actually improve. Like Heather was seeing, when you restore the gut, you can actually begin to assimilate and absorb your food. And when you have fuel for your body, then it can actually detoxify. It can work on the immune system. It has the power and the fuel. And then while you're doing all of that, as I mentioned before, your nervous system and how you navigate life, what's your lifestyle like? How do you manage stress? What are your relationships like? When do you know what burnout looks like? What do you do when you're overwhelmed? All those things have to be addressed. And working with a health coach that can help you with that is one of the biggest missing pieces because they want to do all the physical stuff, but they don't think about the nervous system, which is kind of invisible. And so this approach, the ineffective approach, is like riding a roller coaster and playing whack-a-mole. So we just wanted to give you a snapshot, kind of in a couple sentences, of what the regenerative approach actually is and the pillars of it. And it's basically practice of revitalizing the body's cellular function. So we go all the way down. If you think you're looking through a microscope down onto a slide, we're going to go all the way down to the cellular level as far as how is the cell functioning, what's going on in the environment around it. And by clearing the interferences in the cellular area and the toxins and binding those toxins and pulling them out and enhancing your detox pathways, which is something that the regenerative approach addresses, because you cannot empty the bathtub if the faucet's still going. And if the bathtub is still clogged, you're going to be just swimming upstream. So this regenerative approach creates an internal environment which holistically restores the body. And it's, God designed us to be able to detox our bodies. We are designed immaculately. But when we don't have those pathways open and we have our front door open, letting everything in, and our back door closed, not letting out the garbage, that's where the regenerative approach comes in and does the work, where the ineffective approaches just really can't get around it.
So yeah, I have really found the regenerative approach to be amazing to create that internal environment that the body can do what it needs to do. But the first most important piece, and this is across the board, no matter what approach you're doing, if somebody's living in toxic mold, typically at moderate to high levels, all homes have mold, but it's the level that your body can handle. And most people, when they're in that moderate to high range, they're just not going to get better because the toxins are coming in. So the first step is always to address the environment or to get out and find a new environment. And that's the hardest step for all clients. The next step is us supporting and opening detox pathways, which can be done when someone is in a not ideal environment. Um, Very important to look at the lymph, the gallbladder, the kidneys, the liver, the bowels, as pathways, and the skin and the lungs are pathways as well, but that they're properly supported and to know how to assess them. The piece that I really love about the regenerative approach is that no other approach out there works on nourishing the body at a cellular level and alkalizing the body. For me, this was the 80% of my healing was the nourishing and alkalizing. And Bobby knows to this day, I've had pathogens leaving my body for the last 2 years, parasites leaving without me doing a parasite cleanse because of how I'm eating and how I'm alkalizing and creating an internal environment that things cannot thrive that don't belong there. And then also that eating and, we can use food to gently detox. It's a very powerful tool. We can use other tools as well, but it's just a very gentle way to detox.
And that leads us to the restoring of the gut. So the approach that the regenerative approach does is you have to restore the gut, and you have to close the front door, open the back door, as I mentioned earlier, get those pathways open. And then you really have to reconnect to your nervous system, because anybody who has been impacted by mold, and especially CIRS, has had damage to their nervous system. Being in fight or flight constantly, whether it's because of the mold and the toxins or your lifestyle or trauma that you've experienced, those all create an environment that your cells are feel danger. And when there's a danger response going on in your system, your body cannot heal. You have to be able to move to the parasympathetic rest digest piece in order to heal. And that's where decreasing the toxins and the pathogenic burden on the body comes into play. A lot of times conventional medicine or functional medicine or any of the other medicines focus on the actual mold, specific molds, but they're negating the fact that maybe the person has mono or Epstein-Barr virus, or maybe they have other things like thyroid disorder, that are all burdens on the body. And when those things start to lift and improve, that's when the regenerative approach picks up speed immensely. It's a comprehensive full body approach. So this is where we're at with you. We want to invite you to follow a roadmap, because we have put together a roadmap using the regenerative approach, which helps people figure out what symptoms they have. It helps people assess their environment. We work on the assessment tools, because there are specific things that will really, really help know where you're at in the process of improving and following your progress, and just getting you more knowledgeable about what a person looks like that has mold or CIRS and what to do about it. What are the next steps? And then once you know all of that, you can go into the detoxification, and you can go into the restoration period where you can actually do the work. So there's things that have to happen in order for this to be a game changer for you. And that's why we put together a course that has a roadmap that's going to tell you how to go through all of those steps and stages.
So the work works. These are some other stories. Owen is a 40-year-old man who was a lawyer. He was sick and disabled with CIRS. He was an adrenaline junkie, just loved to mountain climb and ice climb, and he couldn't. And he had upper cervical instability that was definitely related to CIRS. For 24 months, he was using the regenerative approach. And he went back to work in 24 months. But in between, way before that, he was getting back out there mountain climbing and ice climbing early on in the process, 5, 6 months out. And now he's able to ice climb and mountain climb for like 12, 13 hours a day. Lorraine has a very different story. 58-year-old woman. She lived in mold for 20 years. I supported her body while she was in high levels of mold until she was able to get out. And it wasn't until she was able to get out that the healing was really able to start. But sadly, all her very high end doctors who were very well known, nobody was, I don't know, talking about the environment. They were just trying to treat her CIRS, even though she was living in high levels of mold. And 14 months out of mold and using the regenerative approach, she no longer has CIRS, but there are still layers she's peeling away on the healing journey. Well, this is like what we want to get into. We want you to have the education about mold. And so mold is mighty. There are a lot of different species of mold in the world, as you can see. I want you to know that not all of those species are dangerous. There are about 100 species of toxic molds.
So what exactly is mold? We've seen it on our food. We might have seen it on, our home, but mold is a fungus, and it actually breaks down plant, animal matter, and man-made materials. And that's why it can be in a new home, because there's material in the home that the mold likes. And mold recycles and decomposes the plants and the man-made materials. That's what it does. It's its job. Mold grows with moisture and high humidity. And it doesn't have to be a lot of moisture. You don't have to have a flooded basement for mold to grow. Mold produces the spores in order to reproduce. So it's a live organism that's actually something you gotta kill. Mycotoxins, on the other hand, are invisible chemicals produced by the mold, and they're the most dangerous part of the mold and the most poisonous, and they have no scent, like Heather mentioned, and they cannot be killed. You need to clean them up. They cross the blood-brain barrier, which is also something very scary about mycotoxins because you can't smell them. And they're too small to see with the naked eye, and that's why we kind of put a drop in a tiny pool, or a tiny drop in a big pool is what you need to think about mycotoxins.
So, what is mold toxicity? Basically, it's the buildup of mycotoxins, the toxic aspect of mold. But this can be from current exposure or previous exposure. So, that's why if somebody gets out of a moldy home, they may not feel better. That was me. Because I had a lot of mycotoxins in my body from being exposed my entire life. So, leaving the environment's the first step. So mold is this great masquerader. It can present so many different symptoms that people are often labeled with illnesses that aren't the root issue. It's commonly overlooked in conventional medicine because practitioners are not trained in environmental illness. And because it has such a crazy array of symptoms and whole families can present very differently, it can be very hard for a practitioner to recognize it, especially if they haven't been through it themselves. And that's why training on mold toxicity is just so important.
And I mentioned mycotoxins, which come from mold, and I want you to kind of just look at this human body and think about this. And the right-hand side, you see the carcinogenic piece of it. And that basically means that long-term exposure to mold and mycotoxins specifically can create cancer. You see that a lot in the kidney, the nephrotoxicity, or the reproductive area. And we want you to understand that it is a toxin, that it's a neurotoxin too. That was probably where I got hit the most, was the nervous system in my brain, and oxidative stress as well. And there's a lot of symptoms that we're going to go through. Um,
Yeah, so there are so many different symptoms, and I'm not going to read these all, but the most common, like insomnia, is very classic. Brain fog, anxiety, pain, all kinds of pain, fibromyalgia pain, nerve pain, weight loss, weight gain, unexplained either way. Digestive issues are big. I know Bobby dealt with tinnitus, which is not
yeah,
something I dealt with.
I
Just a
still have
lot
it
of fatigue.
actually. It's hard to get rid of.
Yes. Yeah, so everybody has things that sometimes take a little longer to deal with. And um, bedwetting in children is a very common symptom of mold exposure.
Yep.
And hormone issues, hair loss, rashes. I mean, such a long list. This is just a short list. But what I want you to know, this is what I'm really passionate about. These conditions we've listed here often are not going to get better if somebody's living in mold. Lyme disease across the board, people cannot heal because mold suppresses the immune system. So everybody with Lyme should be ruling out their environment as safe. Pans and pandas, um, people cannot get better living in a water damaged building. Pots, mold can definitely be the cause of POTS. It's not always the cause. Mast cell activation, every mast cell activation client I've had was living in moderate to high levels of mold or mycotoxins. Same with histamine issues and multiple chemical sensitivity. So if you're not addressing the root, people are not going to get better. So just be thinking about, do you know some people? Does the client come to mind who is just not getting better or has some of these symptoms, and maybe you hadn't considered that their environment may be playing into what they're dealing with?
So what exactly is CIRS? CIRS stands for chronic inflammatory response syndrome, and it's complex. It's a chronic biotoxin illness. And basically, a biotoxin comes from the environment, and it could be a living organism like a mold, could be a virus, bacteria, or parasites. So it doesn't just always have to be mold, mold, mold. But it's when the body's bucket, the toxin bucket, overflows and it leads to systemic impairment, immune dysfunction, and inflammation in the body. And what's important for you to know about this is there are blood panels of blood work that can verify that you are presenting with mold, toxicity, and CIRS. The thing that you need to realize is that it's not always mold, but mold is most often the culprit at the bottom of the stack of the beginning of starting with CIRS, just like Heather and I both grew up in homes that had some type of water damage. So here's some symptoms of CIRS, and CIRS and mold really do overlap. It's hard to tease them apart, but what I would tell you is when you're looking through these symptoms is CIRS clients, patients, people, whatever you want to call them, all are complex. And so when you have somebody that checks the box on a lot of the symptoms, you really need to start thinking about toxicity, environment, and CIRS. So you can take a screenshot of this if this will help you. And we've got another slide that we want to share with you that will help with diagnostic in a second. But the big thing about CIRS is that it really does, and so does mold, impact all 11 systems of the body. And you're going to have people have a specific system or multiple systems that are screaming more than others. Just like me was my brain. Maybe for someone else, it might be their skin. And someone else, it might be the fact that they struggle reproductively to hold a pregnancy or to get pregnant. And so I want you to understand that it's a global insult to the body, all over the body. So CIRS and mold have there's a kind of a collection of things that CIRS and mold will cause in the body. And I've already mentioned nervous system dysregulation, mood swings, things like that. We've talked about the gut, higher cancer risk, hormonal imbalances, but neural inflammation, but also like Heather mentioned, you had thyroid issues, right?
Yeah, I had Graves' disease, so very common for mold or toxicity to trigger, thyroid disease. I had very high levels of parasites, viruses, and bacteria. Mitochondrial damage will happen with CIRS and mold, which can contribute to people having a lot of fatigue. And, you know, anybody who's in mold or has CIRS, their immune system's not working right. So autoimmune diseases can come to the forefront, like people can have rheumatoid arthritis and lupus and things that are rooted in mold and toxicity.
Uh, the mitochondrial damage is really, as my CIRS doctor, I call him, he's like, it's a mitochondrial disease, basically.
So these next few slides, these are some tools that an individual or a practitioner actually can use to diagnose CIRS. So Dr. Shoemaker came up with these symptom clusters. And if 8 symptoms are checked off in 3 different boxes, then that's something that you're starting to think CIRS potential water damage. And you can take a screenshot of this. You can Google symptom clusters for CIRS, and you can find this picture um, all over the place on the internet. The next test, so you do the symptom clusters is a very inexpensive thing to do, would be to do a visual contrast sensitivity test online. It's a $15 test you do on your laptop, and you're looking at shades of gray of lines that are pointed up and down or to the right and left. And basically, when the optic nerve of the eye gets inflamed from toxins, it changes our ability to see these shades of gray. Also, when we're toxic, blood flow to the eye, blood flow is thicker, so the blood flow to the eye isn't as good. So this is a really amazing test to track people's progress. I encourage all of you on the call, if you have not done a VCS test, you are going to, if you stay to the end, you're going to get the link to the PDF with the link for the VCS test right away to take the test. And sometimes I've had our whole family took the test and we failed the VCS test, and I was shocked because I didn't know I had CIRS. And that was one of the first things we did. So, as a practitioner or as an individual, some things to be thinking about when to test your environment. If you are not seeing improvement on what you're doing with someone, or you're not getting improvement in the first 30 days, I tell people test your environment for mold and mycotoxins. If you have CIRS, or mold toxicity, you need to test your environment because you're not going to get well living in moderate to high levels of toxic mold. If you have Lyme disease, you have to test your environment if you want to heal. And we mentioned autoimmune diseases and PANS and mast cell activation, histamine issues. Again, if the home's negatively or work impacting people's health, they're not going to they're not going to get better. So the test that you can do at home, and there are many other tests. This is just one. Tends to be a standard, the Environmental Readiness Mold Index. It's a dust cloth test. It's not going to tell you where the mold is. It's just going to tell you is there a problem with mold in your home? And it tests for 36 different toxic molds. 29 of them are more indoor molds, and the remainder are outdoor molds. So it's a great starting place.
Yeah. And if you have multiple levels in your home and you really are concerned, I'm just adding this in that sometimes it can be helpful if you do one test per level, because then you really can start to narrow down what level the mold may be in. So now we're going to kind of freshen up here the reality of what we're dealing with. And the reality is, if you are a practitioner, you are already working with clients who are impacted with mold, and you just may not realize it at all. If you haven't been trained to look for it, you haven't experienced it yourself, it's something, once you see it, you kind of start to see it more often. And the reality is that you learning the regenerative approach will make it much easier. You'll be able to confidently handle complex cases and get results faster and more complete. Not just feel better, but actually restore someone's health using the regenerative approach. You'll also be able to elevate the restoration process by making it faster and not just working with symptoms relief, but helping the person thrive and restore. And so I want you to realize that this is your chance to change a life or your life, because the healthcare system needs more practitioners trained in identifying and supporting mold and CIRS illness. So if you're a practitioner or a healthcare provider of any kind and you're ready to elevate your knowledge and sharpen your healthcare detective skills, come and dive in with us to this comprehensive practitioner training. We've designed it's a no fluff training. We've designed it to be laser focused on just getting you more aware, to help you fine tune your practitioner skills, because we've got case studies in the course where you're going to be able to pick apart what's wrong with the person. It's going to help you be able to identify it and truly feel confident, because confidence really breeds trust in your client to help you with a mold and CIRS complex cases. So the results, if you are not using the regenerative approach, your clients stay sick because typically their pathways aren't assessed properly and they're not supported properly. And the regenerative approach does both of those things. They also are not necessarily focusing on cellular nourishment. Unless the cell's properly nourished and the toxins are removed, the gut stays compromised. And like I've mentioned before, when the front door stays open, a lot of things just can't get better. And then other toxins and pathogens in the body besides mold continue to thrive when you're not using the regenerative approach and making that internal environment and terrain, like they call it, more alkaline, so that those pathogens and toxins can't thrive. They can't thrive in an alkaline environment, and the regenerative approach provides that. So you're basically at the cornerstone here, or basically a place in the road where you got to make a decision, and you basically have two ways to move forward. You can educate yourself about mold and CIRS and dive in with us and start with this program with us. Or you can refer your clients to a mold and CIRS literate practitioner, and we'd be happy to help you with your clients if that's your choice. Or you can work with us if you are not a practitioner and would like to go through this program. This is not a course that we feel is only for practitioners.
So if you're a practitioner or an individual and you want to make a difference, you want to feel confident supporting complex clients, or you want to see the needle move in your own health, this course, Navigating Mold and CIRS, is for you. We are marketing it toward practitioners, but I want to say, because there are a lot of you on here who have mold toxicity and CIRS, that this is a course that is so application oriented. it is very appropriate for an individual, and it's not going to be so high tech that you're high knowledge that you're every single module there are takeaways and very application oriented. um, the course is 15 modules. We're doing it live January 6th for the very first time. So there will be live Q&A after each module. There are case studies through every single module. And what I really love is there is going to be an online practitioner community. If we do have clients who want to take the course, we will have an online community for those people who are individuals who have mold and CIRS where people can connect, ask questions, and have support. But this is an overview of what we're covering. Again, we're doing it in 12 weeks. I want to just point out a lot of the stuff is basic. The first probably 7, 8 modules, very basic information on mold. What is unique about us is we're doing a deep dive into the regenerative approach, deep dive in a wonderful module that Bobbi wrote on the nervous system. We're going into all the detox and drainage pathways and signs and symptoms that someone's pathways are struggling, appropriate supports, how you use food as medicine to detox. An hour conversation on binders, when to use them, what binders to use. And then what's very unique is we are going to talk about what are the other approaches out there in the marketplace so that if you're a practitioner and someone's coming to you, you'll know what the other practitioners are doing and understand maybe some of the things that are getting missed so you can better support them. So if all you do is listen to these modules, everything is going to be pre-recorded. So even if you can't attend live, um, you can listen to the replay. You're going to be miles ahead of other people and other practitioners. There's an amazing resource guide. I don't even know how many pages it is, with links to all the testing, everything, books, resources, podcasts, you name it, related to mold and CIRS. Save a lot of time for any practitioner. And as a practitioner, you're going to learn how to spot mold and toxicity and CIRS symptoms. And you're going to be able to impact a client's health and change someone's life, like Bobbi changed my life by pointing out that I had mold and CIRS. I went to tons of health coaches and doctors. They all missed it. My entire life, they missed that I was in mold. What a gift it was to get that information and be able to start to move the needle in my health.
All right. So you might be sitting here, is this program for me? Who is this program for? And I want you to know you're in the right place. If you are a motivated health coach or a practitioner of any kind in healthcare or mental health care, and you're ready to overcome the challenges of supporting a complex client, someone who's forward thinking in wellness and a professional and eager to learn and serve holistically and elevate client breakthroughs, being super passionate about really wanting to move the needle on your client's health. And if you're a healthcare provider who wants to be a part of a cutting edge type of healthcare using the regenerative approach that gets to the root instead of suppressing symptoms, because that's really truly what our passion is that we want to get to the root of what the person's problem is, not just give them something to placate their symptoms. So drum roll, we are asking you to join our mission. Whether you are a practitioner or you're a person who's dealing with mold, we want you to join our mission because we want you to learn more about mold in complex cases and chronic inflammatory response syndrome and become aware and spread that learning. We want you to think outside of the box and think about ways that you can spread this information. Think about people's past and think about their assessment process, asking them questions about what happened to them as they grew up, maybe where they lived, things like that. Growing your practice and growing the knowledge that you have is huge for us as a piece of our mission. We want to help you grow your practice, and you can do that because you have the knowledge and the ability and the skills to assess a person with environmental issues. And then, like Heather already mentioned, and I've mentioned, changing a life. That's really, we both have changed each other's lives, and we want to change a life and keep that going and have a ripple effect. So that's why we have decided our mission is to really educate practitioners and to help people that are suffering with mold. So our live course, which means that it's going to be weekly, we show up with you and we're going to be on Zoom. and it's a pre-launch course, meaning that we haven't run this course before. We basically discounted this down to a no-brainer choice for anybody that's interested in learning more about mold and taking care of either clients themselves or their own personal health. It regularly is priced at $14.97, and our pre-launch pricing is $4.97, and that is good through basically Monday when our course starts. We're going to be kicking off our course at 7 p.m. Central Time. We've got a lot of bonuses for you. We've already mentioned the online community. We've got real-time answers that we'll be spending time with you. Heather mentioned the resource guide, which truly is invaluable to somebody really starting their practice or their mold journey. Lots of PDFs that are going to be helpful with your practice or you to use in your own personal health care. And then Heather's going to explain to you a little bit about our affiliate program in a second. But you will also get, anybody who finishes the 15 modules and all the courses, you'll get a certificate of completion, which I know maybe to some people seems like a piece of paper, but it's actually something you should be really proud of. And it's actually something, if you are a practitioner, you can use in your social media. You can explain to your clients that you are mold aware and CIRS aware, and that you have taken this course.
So if you choose to sign up for the course tonight, by tomorrow, midnight Pacific time, we are throwing in a fast action bonus for you to have a 30-minute strategy call with both Bobbi and I together, whether that's about your health, somebody else's health, or just pick our brain as health coaches. Does not have to be about mold and CIRS, but it can be about mold and CIRS as well. That's a bonus if you sign up by tomorrow. And we're super excited to have an affiliate program for this course. It's a wonderful opportunity to share our mission with others so that other individuals and practitioners can be knowledgeable about mold and CIRS. So you can sign up for our affiliate program and make a percentage back if somebody chooses to purchase the course with your link, and you will get emailed more information about that, but very, very simple to do.
So here are the next steps. We're going to blast off here. If you're going to sign up for this course, we would love for you to just take care of that tonight and sign up for the live 12-week course. Heather's going to be putting into the chat the links to join the course. We have a link for the course, and then we also have a specific link for if you are a student or graduate from the Institute of Regenerative Health. You have a separate, different link. We want you to keep an eye on your email and check your spam folder, because we are a newer email company going out, and sometimes our emails unfortunately end up in the junk or the spam folder. Sign up for the affiliate so that you can take that opportunity to tell your friends and colleagues and other people that may be interested in taking the course, and then you can make $74 based off the price that the course is now, and that will only go up as we go up with our price after the pre-launch. And then
Yeah, and
get excited to learn and think and grow and change a life, because we begin on the 6th.
I want to share, if you're, even if you're not a practitioner, you can get an affiliate link.
Yep.
I had a patient of mine share this with her doctor who signed up for the course. So the affiliate link is for anybody.
So we're going to come back on camera now. I want to thank you. Heather and I both want to thank you for attending tonight. We're going to be answering your questions in the chat. The link, if you pull up the chat, you should be able to see the link to the course. We're also going to be putting in your instant bonus, I should say. The instant bonus is a PDF that you can download. It's a link that you can go right to. You don't have to mess around with logging in or anything like that. You can go right to the link, and it is a symptoms checklist. And so for mold and CIRS, that way you can know, hey, this is something I definitely want to pursue. It also is going to give you the links to the eye test, the VCS test, and the dust cloth test, so that you have some steps for following up after you leave this webinar, because we don't want to leave anybody hanging. But I'm going to move over to the last page, which is our information again, so that if you do feel like you really want to pursue working with us, or you want to just know a little bit more about us, go to our website, go to our personal websites, learn about our stories, follow us on social media, and check out Navigating Mold and CIRS in the course. And we're going to go ahead and get started with questions and answers. We appreciate anyone who showed up here live tonight. You will receive the replay in an email tomorrow, along with the links to the course and things like that. But thank you very, very much for coming. And for now, we're going to go ahead and stop the recording.